Well, thank you guys for coming to our February meeting. And Julie Lisk is going to talk here today on the population of eastern box turtles in northeastern Massachusetts. So whenever you want to get started, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Julie, and I live up in Groton, Massachusetts. And I've been doing this kind of work for about 20 years with working with Brian Woodmiller, Daniel Wells, and others. And so anyway, this project I was started because I was doing some volunteer work with grassroots wildlife conservation with Brian Woodmiller, and he was doing some work at the Groton Dunstable High School. They have a population of Blandings turtles there, and I was working with the high school students trapping and tracking Blandings. And one day I was out tracking a particularly turtle that liked to walk pretty far. And in doing so, I came across a box turtle crossing the road. Now, I found maybe 10 years earlier a box turtle crossing the road near where I live, but it was dead. And at that time, I was told it was probably a released pet because they aren't this far north. So I just kind of was listening to the herpetologist. Okay, so, somebody released their box turtle by a car. So anyway, but this particular turtle that I found that day, I took its picture, took my GPS location. I'm still going to report it, and but I sent a text to Brian Woodmiller, and just in case. And about 40 minutes later, he calls. Do you still have that turtle? I'm like, no. We released it. Can you go back and look for it? So this is Tom Murray, my husband. He helps me a lot in the field. And anyway, we went back and we found it. And so he told me, do you all know who Mike Jones is? He's our state herpetologist for Massachusetts Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. That he had an idea that there might be box turtles further north than what was believed. So anyway, we put a radio on that turtle and we started radio tracking him. And so that's kind of how we got started. And how do I go to the next slide?
Somebody sit there and poke the button.
And this, of course, it just started out with Tom and I looking for turtles, but as the project unfolded, many more people got involved with helping with field work, helping with veterinary help, and of course helping with funding. So these are most of those people. I hope I remembered everyone. I can't put the private landowners down because they don't like me to do that. So and these people are all still mostly involved. Okay, the next slide, please. And this just to give you an idea of eastern box turtle distribution in Massachusetts. So the dark blue areas are where the concentrations of populations are, and that's mostly in the southeast and in the Connecticut River Valley. And you see as you move further up north, the lighter colors, like that light blue color, is, I think it's, one animal has been observed in that town. So, and this is from historical to 2010. In the black areas, they've been seen historically, but not within 25 years. So like for example, I think air is colored in black. Shirley's white. So anyway, that just gives you an idea of how it looks like there may not be many turtles up in the northeast. So I think that's sort of why it was kind of thought that any of these single individuals were released pets or relocated from elsewhere. Next. So this is the guy that was crossing the road that kind of just changed my trajectory for the next few years. And like I said, we got a radio on him, and we started radio tracking him. And since it was in the fall, getting kind of late in the season, it still could be a good time to find turtles. So we were looking, and we were also kind of scouting, thinking ahead to the following season. And at the time, I had a job, and this project just grabbed me so much. And I said the only way I could do this is quit my job. because they're so hard to find. You really have to do it full time. So, so we took a big income drop, and I started looking for turtles. And so in the spring of 2017, we started our searches. And this first male, he came out of hibernation on April 14th. And every time I located him, which was 3 to 5 times a week, I would look at an area 2 to 3 acres in circumference around him, because if there's one, there's probably another one nearby. So looking. And, but then I got a tip from a couple of people. A woman, Ann Gagnon, who works for Fisheries and Wildlife, had found a box turtle shell not far from where this guy, M1, the first male, was. And a Dunstable resident who is now like 75 saw one when he was 10 years old, near to where this shell had been found. So I thought, well, that sounds like a really good clue. So we're also going to start looking over in that area. So that's, you can't see it there on the right, but that's a utility right of way. And so when you're looking in the early spring for box turtles, we look in what we call early successional habitats, where, because they're coming out, they overwinter in the woods, but they come out to bask where it's warm. So a little vegetation, but some cover, and so that's, we were looking in places like that. So next, okay, and then on May 7th, we found our first turtle that wasn't crossing a road. And I would say that was about 3 weeks of intensive looking. And so we didn't have any radios. And, you know, so we, but Mike Jones said, if you find some turtles, I can scrap up some radios for you. So anyway, we took this guy. We have a licensed rehabber in Groton. Her name is Joan Caruso. And I left the turtle in her care while we went and got a radio for this gal. It was a female. And when I arrived to her house, her husband had a bottle of cold champagne waiting for us.
That was nice.
It was very nice. So I mean, it was like, it may sound stupid, but I was looking for box turtles, and at the same time I was surprised that I found one. So yeah. So next slide, please. And then, okay, so we continue tracking her, and we're tracking the other male that's probably about a mile away. And again, always looking, you know, within a 2 to 3 acre perimeter around that turtle. And one day, I went out tracking her, and she made what I thought was a very odd movement. She had been on this right-of-way where I presumed she was going to nest during nesting season. She moved about a quarter of a mile within a day to this open area of successional habitat where we had not been looking because it was private property. And I thought, this is a very strange movement. And it also happened to be that we had 3 days of, how hot was it?
It was in the 90s.
Yeah, string of really hot days. And so I thought to myself, is she going to nest? Because this is early. It's a bit early. And, but you know, it's possible. But I finished up the day, and I went home, and I kept thinking about it, and I said to Tom, we got to go back to the site. She might nest tonight. So by then it was evening, and we grabbed a couple of sandwiches and went out to the site. And you know, it's about a mile walk through the woods from the car. And there she was. She was. Oh, can you push that? It's like a little. Yeah. She's not moving much, but she was. Anyway, here she is nesting. So, which is unusual. So we weren't really quite ready for nesting season, and it was getting dark, and we didn't have a flashlight, but we did have one in the car. So Tom ran back a mile with the car, back, you know, again. We ended up staying out there till midnight, and when she finished, we put protection over the nest. Okay, and then next, please. And then, so that was, you know, May 19th. We found her, that she's, oh, also, it's important, her name is Speckles. Because she has little dots on, speckles on the top of her head. So, then towards the end of May, because kind of following this turtle, and now we were looking in this new area on private property, we found a new female, F3, she's on the left, whose name is Miss Birdie. And then a couple days later, we found her, didn't have a radio. I call up Mike Jones, and he's on his way back to New Hampshire, and he's going to meet me somewhere, and he gives me a radio. And I said, do you just happen to have maybe one more so we can have an extra one on hand in case we find a third one? He's like, well, you can use this one, but you got to be careful because when we took the old putty off, it knocked off the waterproofing and this, that, and the other thing. Anyway, we had that, and so we took her back to the site, and there we found a third turtle. So we were very lucky we had that. And the interesting about number 10, she got number 10 and not 4 because the number 4 scoop on her was too damaged. But it turns out that the radio she had on her had been formerly on a turtle in the Yucatan, a box turtle in the Yucatan. So, as Mike Jones pointed out, now we had the northernmost turtle range up here in Massachusetts, and it had been on the southernmost range of the turtle down in Yucatan. So, there's kind of that little connection there. Okay. And then I have to say, so after we found that third turtle, it's like getting very, very, very excited, and we're all dirty, and we have insect repellent on us, and we stink and everything. And Tom goes, we should go eat to Gibbet Hill tonight, because by then it's like 7:30 at night. I'm like, we can't go there dressed like this. And after a while, I was so hot and hungry, I was like, oh, let's go. So we did, and so we had another little celebration for that. And then next. And so now we're into the more typical classical nesting season. And so we had those 2 new females, and we were able to locate and protect their nests as well. And the speckles, she did a second nesting. She did the same thing the first time. She was on the right of way. She came to this area, and I said, is she going to do a second nesting? And it's the first record in Massachusetts, the first known record of that happening. They do it in the South, but here it's not. It was previously unknown that they may do that. So she did it. Next, please. And then now back to M1, because we've been, focusing on these new females that are on the other side of the river from him. And looking, and we never, ever found a box turtle associated with him. But it's hard to see with the light, but we found him with wood turtles. We found him, that's him on his back on the bottom. He was trying to mate with a painted turtle. So he knows what a turtle is. He wasn't finding a box turtle. But we kept trying anyway. But even now, we haven't found, with 2 years of surveys, we haven't found any box turtles associated with him. Next, please. So now we're into July, nesting season's over, nests are protected, and we find a new female. But we had 1 transmitter left, and that was it. That was the last one. And I must have said something to Don, I'm like, we don't have any more transmitters. I'm told we're all out of transmitters. We didn't think you were going to find this many turtles, Julie. So anyway, Don suggested we apply for a grant through New England Herpetological Society, and we did, and got money to buy more radios. But in the meantime, it's a 6-week turnaround to get your radio. So of course we were finding more turtles, but Brian Windmiller and Dan Wells were loaning us turtles till we got our shipment in. So we were able to continue putting radios on turtles. Next, please. And now we're getting into getting time for things to hatch out. And what we did, and this is what Brian Woodmiller does with the Blandings turtles, is they dig them up at day 60. Because I guess by that time their sex has been determined, any benefit they may get from being in a natural nest has probably been received. So we very, very carefully dig them up. And then we incubate them indoors. And this is again Joan Caruso. She's the one that dug the most up, and she tells me, can you go to the next one? And this is her. She says, just pretend it's dynamite when we're digging them up. So of course I'm afraid to dig them up. So that's her very patiently doing this, each and every nest, an egg at a time.
Was there an average number of eggs per nest, or did it just vary
It's
all
about,
over?
if you average it all out, it's about 5.5. All right, next please. And I have to tell you, because we weren't finding any males, the whole time I was worrying that we had all infertile females. And so I was very apprehensive if we were going to get any hatchlings. And then Joan called me on 8/23/17. We have an egg picking, and his name is Birdie. Okay, next please. And then this. So we ended up. We had from three females. We ended up with 21 eggs, but only 7 successfully hatched. So 7. We don't know their sexes yet. And I took 2, we're head starting them. I took 2, Joan took 2, Brian Woodmiller's group took 3, but later, because we were doing a better job than Brian, Joan took those 3, so she has 5 now, and I still have the 2 that I started with. And this is an example of Birdie. He's the first one to hatch. And this is what he weighed, 9.2 grams on 9/15. And in January of this year, he's up to 264 grams. Joni has one that's over 350 grams. So to give you an idea, we did find a few juveniles. One juvenile we found was 6 years old, and she weighed 154 grams at 7 years old. Okay. All right, now we're getting into September, and finally we're finding males. Again, that's it. During the summer, I don't spend much time surveying because it's so hot. They're often under dense cover and really, really difficult to find. But we continue radio tracking them through the whole season. And so again in September, we start active searches. And we finally found our first male, M4. They're in the middle. And of course, we didn't have a radio. So anyway, Brian Woodmiller, I called him, and he had a couple. He said, "Come to the office, and I'll give them to you." So we got a radio on him, and then we followed him for a while, and he led us to a new female, and we followed him some more, and he led us to a new male, which was M7, and I don't know whether they were fighting or they were attempting to mate. I have no idea, but that's how we found him. And so we put a radio on him. And then I continued radio tracking all the other turtles. And I went back later in the afternoon to see what our new M7 was up to. And he was fighting with a new turtle, a male. And again, I didn't have any more radios. So, but Dan Wells, I gave him a call. He was nearby, and he loaned us one. So we got a radio on him. Okay, next, yeah. Oh, and then this is a really... This was the last male we found in 2017. And does anybody here know who Marion Stoddard is?
I do.
Oh, okay. Well, she lives in Groton, and she's kind of a national and local hero. Back in the 60s, she was the main person behind getting the Nashua River cleaned up. So she's a strong environmental activist, and she's in her mid-80s now. And she came out with me and a couple of her friends, and she was bushwhacking through those woods like she was 10 years old. And so she had never seen a box turtle before. So it was really exciting. Not only did she get to see some of them that we already have, but she was with us when we found this new male. And we were out on Friday the 13th. So you can push it again from the video. So we call him Lucky 13.
He's really yellow.
Really,
Yeah, that was the first bright yellow one we got. Yeah. And then, so this is, I wish that were a snowy scene, but they were in hibernation at this time. And that Lucky 13, he hibernated under all those fallen logs. He was about 100 feet from where another Miss Birdie, female 3, overwintered. And this year, they're overwintering in the same chamber, in that same area. And so I was talking mostly about 2017 because I just kind of wanted to, like, you know, the process of, you know, how we find turtles and what we do. But we got a grant because of all this discovery. Natural Heritage gave us a contract to continue this research and as well to branch out and look in other communities. So, you know, in 2017 we did it all year and then again in 2018. And so, you know, we documented a significant population heretofore unknown at the northernmost limit of their range in Massachusetts. And at our primary Dunstable site, in 2018 we found at least 5 or 6 new individuals. And so now we have, in 2017 we had 10 tracked turtles, now we got 19. And as well we found 3 juveniles that don't have trackers on them. And additionally, we found box turtles at 3 Groton sites. Not sure how they're going to work out. One of them, where we found 2, we hoped we'd find some females, but we haven't yet. But in October, we found a new site in Groton. It was too late in the season to really do any searches, but at least we have one on radio. So maybe in the spring, hopefully something good will happen there. And the 2 that we found at the Groton site on an Audubon sanctuary, it turned, we were looking there because I got a tip on a turtle that had been found there in 2015. And I had a picture of it. And I realized when I started going over the data in the fall that the turtle that had been in Groton was found by another person this past summer, and it turned out it's the same individual 3 miles north of his original location. So again, we're following him. We haven't found more around him, but we'll keep looking. And we found 1 in Berlin that we're tracking, and then in Andover there had been a report from 2015 of a box turtle, so we were looking there, and we found a roadkill one, but it wasn't the same turtle, so we know there was at least 2 turtles. And then, as I said, we had 7 hatchlings from 2017 that are on their 2nd year of head starting, and then from our 28 nests we protected 7. Was it 7? I think it was 7, yes, 6 or 7 female nests, which yielded 23 hatchlings from 41 eggs, and those are all being head started. I have 2, we have a couple high school students with some. We're letting Brian try again, and then 11 of them are here in the Glaston area. So, okay, and next please. And so, you know, I've been doing this work for a lot of years, and often it's involved with construction and habitats getting destroyed. And here I thought, oh, we got this nice habitat. So guess what? We find out they're going to put a solar farm right smack in the middle of our box turtle population in Dunstable. And it's still under review, so it's not over yet. And but the one thing that may really help a lot is that Tom, he was out doing nesting surveys there. I was in Andover, and he calls, I've got a Blandings turtle here. So it has a higher level of protection than a box turtle. And because I found the box turtles after the new atlas came out, they're not on the new atlas, so it's like they're not even there. So when this project came up, it's like, they're not there. Even though there's 20 turtles out there, they're not there until they're on the next new atlas, which could be 4 or 5 years. And because they're not on it, the site can't be regulated for box turtles. But that Blandings turtle, he made, you know, is really significant and could really help this site, because they're going to have to do a turtle protection plan. So they're going to have to do sweeps just like you would do for a box turtle. So while they're looking for Blandings, they can look for box turtles too. Plus we have radios on a lot of the turtles, so hopefully we'll be able to get them out of harm's way. I know we want to release our 2017 Head Starts. They're planned to be released this spring with radios, but we have to figure out where we're going to put them in light of this solar array coming in. And we haven't decided yet what to do with the 2018 Head Starts. The last slide. And this is the 6-year-old that I told you about that's only 154 grams. He was found in July 2017. So just this little guy. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you know, I might be able to answer, Tom might be able to answer, somebody here might be able to answer. Yes.
If one was interested in helping Head Start, how would you suggest they go about doing that?
What's that?
If you needed more volunteers for Head Starting the turtles, who would you recommend contacting?
Oh, Grassroots Wildlife. Yeah. Are you all familiar with? A lot of people know Brian.
He's come here.
He's presented here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's working. Oh, and I forgot to say. So we got another grant for 2019 from the Warrington Trust, but we don't know with what's going on with the solar farm how that's going to affect what we can and can't do. And Grassroots Wildlife is under Zoo New England now, is training a dog named Coda to help us find box turtles. And I keep telling him he's going to be better than me, but we'll have to see how. Yeah.
So the solar field, you said that because they're not on the atlas that they're technically not there.
That's right.
When they do their survey and they find them,
Yes.
will they then put them on the atlas and not be able to
No,
go there?
they won't get on the atlas until they publish a new one, which I don't know. They do it every 4 to 5 years.
Oh, they don't make updates to it or anything like
No.
that?
But because the Blandings turtle is a higher level of protection, they will consider him even though he's not on that atlas.
Yeah. But do they have to find him again, like when they do their surveys?
No,
do
but
they
what
just-
they have to, so typically what they do is, and like I said, this is still under review, so we don't know exactly what natural heritage is gonna require. One thing they're gonna require is for every acre of land they develop, they have to put 2 acres in conservation restriction. But the other thing they have to do is they enclose the work area with silt fencing so that turtles inside can't get out and turtles outside can't get in. And then you walk through and do what we call sweeps. You just do transects, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And any turtle you find gets put outside the fence and presumably will, be out of harm's way. So they'll be probably required to do that because of the Blandings.
So how many total trackers are on how many total turtles now that you can go and find when they come out of brumation?
Tom's better at that, Tom. What are we up
I
to?
think you have I think it's 14 turtles with radios in Dunstable, and then
Yeah.
you got about 4 or 5 others in other locations.
It is
Yeah.
almost 20.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Almost 20 turtles.
I think it's
yeah.
19 total.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's a lot of radios. A lot of money.
Yeah, $200 each, and they last a year.
How long does the battery last on your radio?
About
Did
a
it last
year.
every winter? Okay.
Yeah, about a year. And actually, it'll be interesting. Another thing we did this year is we put temp loggers in 5 of the brumation chambers. We put them down about the same level the turtle is at, and you'll just be able to see what the temperatures are doing from about November to April.
And you told me before that the box turtles can actually freeze solid. Can freeze for a few days and not die.
Right. And I'm kind of, we're having a weird winter because we don't have good snow cover, which is good insulation for the turtles, and we've had these sub-zero weathers with no snow cover. But I guess they're pretty tough, so we'll see what we see in April when they come up.
So how far under the brush do they go?
How much
How
what?
far under the brush do they go?
They generally go about anywhere from maybe 3, 5, 6 inches into the soil. Yeah, they just kind of go down as they need. Maybe they start off like 1 or 2 inches under the soil, and then as it gets a little colder, they dig their ways down a little further deep.
So it probably takes them a little bit to actually dig that.
I would think so, but I don't know. The females are pretty good at digging nests. So anyway, go out and find box turtles, and that's the thing. I told you about the box turtle that I found run over, and it was a mile from my house. That was in 2009, and that was when somebody told me, "Oh, it's probably just a pet." And but last year I was speaking to a woman that lived less than a half a mile from there, and I was talking about box turtles. She goes, "Oh, I have 2 box turtle shells in my studio. I paint them. We found them in our backyard about 20 years ago." And I'm like, "You're kidding." So I went over to her house and I looked and I go, "Yeah, those are box turtle shells." So, and there's a woman that used to live in Groton at the turn of early 1900s, and she was a naturalist, and she recorded a lot of wildlife sighting and wrote it down. And she writes having seen box turtles in Groton. And so where I found the dead turtle was about 500 feet from her house, and these 2 shells were less than a half a mile from there. So I suspect there used to be box turtles. But, so what's happening is that it looks like we have, maybe our populations are smaller because they're further north, but nevertheless they're there. And if we don't find them, they're going to be gone. So, yeah.
So if you find them, report them, just like we do with the vernal pools and stuff like that.
Report them, yeah.
Protect them.
Take a picture.
Yeah, picture GPS, right? Is that all they want?
Yeah, they'll ask you other questions, but those are the 2 most important
Biggies.
things.
Oh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for helping out with those radios that we kept
Oh,
needing
yeah.
every other week.
You can apply again. You just write your grant again, and we'll review it.
All right, thank you.
It's great for us to see that
The progress.
it's really worked out,
Yeah, and it's been very exciting. It's exciting that we don't have the diversity or unexplored territories like they have in Central and South America and other far-flung places in the world. But there's still a lot here we don't know. So
Yeah.
you don't have to go far to find interesting things.